Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is Security Happy Hour. It is live, and it is Ladies' Night. Now, throughout the night, we may have others join us, which will be awesome. But until said time, we have with us today repeat guests Alyssa Miller, Kim Crawley, and Jessica Boyer. Now, again, like I said, there should be more joining us tonight, but until said time, this is what we got. And I'm happy regardless because they're amazing people. So, nothing beats having some awesome cybersecurity personnel on Cyber Warrior Studios for Security Happy Hour. As we can see, I'm, still going strong. There it is. Hey, your background, Jess, is messing with your drink. We can't see it.
Yeah, it's a pineapple cider beer.
So, anywho,
Pineapple
getting
cider.
into it. Look, I
Pineapple
gotta say,
cider.
this was actually it was spurred because I've seen a lot. I actually had a request for me to do a ladies' night, and I was like, all right, fine. I ain't got a problem with that. But then on top of that, I've seen a lot of things that have bothered me because I still see, like, Alyssa, you had issues that you dealt with recently, and Kim, and things like that. And actually, I think it was Kim. It was your post on Twitter about what to call people, and I'm like, women, men. Like, I don't think it's hard. Like, it's pretty easy. So I wanted to do a ladies' night because women are just as important to cybersecurity as men. I don't care what anybody says. You can hate me for it, but the fact remains, diversity and inclusion and everything else is important in this field. So that's kind of what spurred this on, especially coming from a family of, sisters, and I was the only boy, and then, my wife. For once, I'm like out, we're male heavy in this house because I've got, my 5 boys and then my wife. But
Wow.
she's been, just as big of a supporter and everything else to what I'm doing, so I love it. And actually, if anybody of you saw the clothes that I was posting today, she made all those. Well, did all the iron-ons and everything else like that. So we're eventually going to get into that. But getting into it, Jessica, as you're new, and Kim, you'll go next. Alyssa, you're such a big name that, and you're a repeat guest that we'll let you go last.
I'm good
Jess,
with that.
why don't you give us a heads up? Tell us where you came from, what you're doing now, and what your goals and aspirations are right now for cybersecurity.
Well, I started 20 years ago in the IT support field. Started as desktop support, and then worked my way up to a system admin, network admin, with always a security mindset in the back of my mind. And even during my job, I was always security focused, especially with the controls that I had, putting the right controls in place. And then, yeah, I jumped off in security and got heavy on LinkedIn and joined the security community. And my manager actually found me. I was unemployed during COVID. I had worked government contracting off and on, and got unemployed during that time. And then got really busy and heavily active in the security community and LinkedIn. And then she happened to find one of my videos and saw me and pulled me in for an interview. And that's how I ended up as a security analyst.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely like having you here, especially as an analyst and getting your getting everything started in security and things like that. So look forward to hearing more from you. Kim, why don't you give us a heads up how you kind of found your way to the darkness that is security?
Um, I didn't get into IT until I was in my mid-20s. Like Jessica, my first IT role was desktop support. It was mainly remote support, so I think I must have remoted into like thousands of Windows PCs, fixing I would say like roughly half of the tickets were malware related. And that's when I really caught the cybersecurity bug, like removing malware and having to fix the damage afterward. I also saw like early ransomware in that time. This was before Bitcoin, it was before cryptocurrency. So ransoms actually demanded credit card numbers.
Okay.
That was a hard job. I mean, I was closing on average like 30 plus tickets a day.
So those ransoms though with credit cards though, weren't they easier to track?
Yes, which is why as soon as cryptocurrency became a thing, then ransoms became demands of cryptocurrency.
That's crazy because I didn't even hear of ransomware until crypto. And
No,
I've been studying the field for a while, so
Yeah.
I had never heard of ransomware until crypto. So the fact that you came across it with credit card schemes and stuff like that blows my mind because yeah, phishing emails and spam, it's always, oh, get a gift card for Walmart. That'll count as payment. Just give me the PIN. Like, that makes sense. But to sit here and say, oh, just send it to my bank account that has my name and information and social on it, like, that blows my mind.
That was ransomware like in 2006.
Wow. That's crazy. Crazy.
Oh, and I remember some of those predictions as cryptocurrency was coming up to speed, and there were people who rightly predicted that cryptocurrency was going to be like the major enabler for ransomware. And I mean, sure enough, here we sit.
But the crazy thing about that is, I think that what I find funny is, like all things, something that starts out good and for the right reasons gets twisted into something that malicious people use for the wrong intent. So look at the darknet, right? And Tor and things like that. Its initial intention was encryption and privacy and everything else like that. But then, of course, got turned into hackers and drug dealers and all the other nonsensical BS that's down there that we're not going to go into. So it just blows my mind because everything that is like even cryptocurrency we don't want it to be government regulated. We want to have all these ways to pay people where we don't have to rely on the government, and we want privacy and security and all this stuff. And that was, kind of like blockchain and things like that is now, hey, we're going to use this for ransomware because it's secure and you can't track me, so I don't care. It's like, well, it did have a good purpose, but now, as all things that have a good purpose, it has been twisted and is now malicious.
Another big difference between like ransomware in 2020 and ransomware 5-10 years ago is now the enterprise is the primary target, like hospitals and schools, entities like that. And that's because they're more likely to pay larger ransoms, right? So like obviously like consumer endpoints, ransomware is always a risk, like never say never on any platform. But yeah, the enterprise is now the primary target of ransomware.
For sure.
So after like doing desktop support, the only thing I'm really good at other than understanding the basics of computer technology is writing. I've always, like I grew up with writing, like my dad was a professional writer. And I kind of eventually stumbled into writing about cybersecurity. And that was a long story, but I think it's my destiny. So it took me several years of doing that until I got into a position where I could do this as a day job. But the only reason why I'm able to do it as a day job is because I'm always working for like lots of different companies at once. If I had to rely on any one company, I wouldn't be able to do this as a day job.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that is kind of crazy. And if you can do it independently or do it as research, and me and Alyssa have talked about this before, being able to do things where you basically get paid as an independent researcher to do all the fun stuff that you enjoy doing, that has a lot of value to it because then you can concentrate on the different aspects that you enjoy without being pigeonholed into, oh, you're a pen tester, oh, you're a analyst, oh, you're an engineer, oh, you're this, that, or the third. So that has a lot of value because then A, you're always busy because there's always something new to look up, and B, you're not tied down to any one role, so you're not going to get bored.
I've told people repeatedly, as far as my knowledge is concerned, I am a cybersecurity generalist. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none when it comes to knowledge.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's not. But, and Alyssa, I'm going to come to you right after I say this. But, you know, for me, I despise the word expert. And in a lot of fields, but more especially when somebody says they are a cybersecurity expert, I really despise that term because cybersecurity is such a broad term that it is very difficult. Actually, it's impossible to be an expert. Now, you want to say you're an expert at exploit development? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Even though there's multiple operating systems, so many different software programs, I'll let you slide. You say you're an expert analyst. All right, maybe you're a great threat hunter. You can find this stuff. You know how to view logs and do all these things. But the moment you generalize it and say you're an expert in cybersecurity, you're wrong. Because the field is constantly changing and shifting and moving. And there's no way you can keep up with everything. And if you can, you're Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory who has an eidetic memory and remembers everything they ever see. Like, it is absolutely impossible. And this is coming from somebody who... I've studied networking, I've studied system administration, I've tried to study everything there is about cybersecurity, and I know for a fact that there is no way in hell I will ever be an expert in cybersecurity.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. I've always said that, and they're like, what are you an expert in? I'm like, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm still learning all the time.
Yeah.
I'm an expert in making tech companies sound like they understand cybersecurity. That's about it.
Yeah. So moving on, Alyssa, so we've had you on before. I know you're doing some amazing things. I think I saw you post, you had something like 5 talks in the course of like 2 days or something like that, 3 in one day, you know, coming up. Or I think you may have done the 3 in one day already.
No.
But you're doing some amazing things. So... for people who haven't gotten to hear you or really heard about you, you know the spiel. Let us know what's going on.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, I'm a cybersecurity expert, so I couldn't resist. I could not resist. I mean, next I'm going to say I'm a cybersecurity influencer because that's another one that makes me gag. I really don't like that term. But no, yeah, I mean, hacker researcher, you know, I'm a security advocate, and that's really more my actual title professionally right now. But it also fits kind of what I do. You mentioned, yeah, I've got 5 talks coming up this week, which is kind of wild to me. I think that's a result largely of 2 things. One, the fact that a lot of these conferences that postponed their stuff all decided it would be really cute to postpone until Cybersecurity Month. And so they all scheduled for October. And it's also a product of me not paying attention to my calendar as I was booking things. Thankfully, somehow I luckily came through all of this with nothing overlapping. So I at least managed my calendar well enough for that. But yeah, I've got 3 talks happening on Tuesday, and it's wild stuff, but it's fun. I mean, what I really like to do, and thankfully I'm in a role now where I get paid to do it, is get out in the community and speak, obviously. But I've got a lot of different topics, and I think I'm covering like all of my kind of standing talk tracks, things that I've been working on this year, covered this week. So I'm starting off on Monday. I'm talking to DC Cyber Warriors about you know, getting started in cybersecurity. We have this whole lovely storyline out there about the supposed cybersecurity skills gap. And I did a ton of research this year. Started off at the beginning of the year doing some surveys, and I did some interviews. I've been doing some other OSINT research since on job descriptions. And what you find is you've got millions of jobs that are sitting open. Yes. You also have millions of people looking for jobs who can't find them. And the people who are looking for jobs, whether they're, I'm like giving my whole talk away, but whether they're, you know, experienced or if they're new to the field, it takes all of them a long time, a lot longer than it should to find a new job if we really had such a shortage. I mean, we're talking, you know, the average time is 3 to 6 months, but something like darn near 50% will be out there for 6 months or longer, some going longer than a year before they can find a role. Like, okay. So there's that. I've been doing a lot trying to really change how we hire in cybersecurity in general as well. So not just tell people, here's how you start a career, but also talk to companies and say, you know, we're doing this wrong. And what we're doing is perpetuating the problem because our hiring model is completely not sustainable.
You ever want someone to speak with you? Please let me know. I will gladly be on there with you, because that has been a big pet peeve of mine, is this skills gap. Because and somebody, I don't know if it was Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, I seen it somewhere. Someone said it, where we need to quit relying on job descriptions and certifications and allow interviews to take over and see passion and learning and the ability to do the job, because that's how I was hired. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I was hired for not for my first job out of the Army, but my second job. I got hired not based on the fact that I knew the technology they were working with, because I didn't. I outright told them. I was like, I don't know this. I was like, but I have all this that shows I'm able to learn. I'm able to do the job, and I'm willing to work with you. And they hired me on the spot. Like right after I got off the call, and within an hour, I had a call from the recruiting company I was going through. They're like, hey, you got the job. They're like, they'll call you on Monday and let you know, but you got the job. I was like, money, I'll take it. But, and that's how, and it comes down to the fact that some companies, and I tell, my cat is like, got his freaking tail in my face.
Yes.
Some
get
companies.
Him. Kitty, go get him.
Here's Apollo. He doesn't usually make it on Security Happy Hour, but he's here today. So some companies actually will hire based on passion, based on drive, based on things outside of certifications and college degrees and experience. They hire based on, you know, do you have the willingness to learn the job? And that's part of the skills gap, is because let's be real, and Alyssa, I'm sure you can back me up on this, where I'm sorry, hackers, like we'll say hackers, but you're true security professionals that have been doing this probably since they were 2 years old and know more about it than I ever will in my life. They don't have certification. They don't have degrees. They don't have anything this, because their life has been behind a computer. So how are they supposed to get a respectable job if all you're looking for is paper?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because you said take it out of the job descriptions. The job descriptions just need to be fixed, quite honestly, in my opinion. You know, part of what I actually, here I am, I'm going to brag now. I'm going to totally drop this out there because, you know, I got to do that. I'm doing a TEDx talk in February, and the bulk of it is really around, we're so hyper-focused, and you touched on this, we get so hyper-focused in security in particular on experience with specific technologies, that what we don't look at is this idea of what I refer to as core transferable skills, which I've seen a lot of terms for it. Some people even say soft skills. It's not really soft skills necessarily. But, you know, the example I use, and unfortunately some folks in the UK are screwing up my metaphor here, because it's really, they launched an ad campaign in the last couple of weeks that kind of leveraged what I use in a different way, and people are not happy about it. But the example I like to use is someone who worked as a barista, and how skills and other things that they learned as a barista are the types of things that you're looking for in a SOC analyst. Think about it for a minute. You watch a barista work at Starbucks. What are they doing? They're taking in all of these inputs from multiple sources. They're processing it. They're identifying the tasks that need to be completed. They're arranging and prioritizing those tasks to do them in the most efficient way. And then they deliver a quality product to the customer. So if you take all of the coffee context out of that and just think about it in those terms, it's like, wait a minute, yeah, that's exactly what I want the people sitting in my SOC to be able to do. So if I can find that barista who also happens to have the technical aptitude and desire to learn technology and passion for it, you know, like you were saying, why don't I focus on those skills rather than saying, you know, you got to have 3 years of experience with Splunk, you got to have 5 years of experience with some SOAR technology when, SOAR has only been around for a couple of years, and, things like that. It's like, if we would just think about what it is we really need. I mean, I can't count the number of people who I've seen pontificate about how, I can teach anybody the technology. I need to see their passion. Well, then hire that way.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, and I'm glad you said that. I think it was your post I may have seen or commented on about that, about being a barista and then coming in and taking those skills and transferring them. And that's something me as a veteran and in the veteran dealing with other veterans, we try to help with that, transferring what you've done, whether it be infantry or whatever other career field you've had within the military, taking those skills and be able to transfer them to a resume so that you can relate it to civilian jobs, whether that's leadership or soft skills or whatever the case may be. Because you can't, I'm not gonna lie, you can't go on a resume and you're applying for IT and say, I like to blow shit up. That just does not work, guy. That is not a transferable skill for IT. Well. They might get mad. So it's been about taking that and taking those things that you enjoy or that you can do or you have done and converting them in such a way that they mesh with the civilian sector and mesh with the job that you're applying for, regardless of what it is. A lot of us in the military get soft skills in terms of we have to be able to write correspondence. We have to be able to write reviews. We have to be able to lead teams. We have to be able to do all these different things. So I find it funny a lot of times because when you look at your management structure of companies, they'll hire officers right out the gate because, you've led thousands of people and this, that, the other. Meanwhile, we're not going to get into it, but yeah, so that's what they say. But then you've got NCOs, the enlisted members on the front line, truly leading these teams and doing a lot of different things. But half the time they're not considered for leadership roles because, well, let's face it, you only manage a team of 5 or 10. Like, what's that have to do with leadership? A lot. You realize how hard it is to lead those 10 kids? And no, they're not necessarily kids, but we're forced to treat them as such. So, that's kind of how it goes. And so it's crazy because as you talk about being a barista, I relate that to some of these infantry guys and some of these other people that were tankers and everything else that have had to take these skills and don't know how to translate it to fit for what the roles they're looking for. And I think part of that is, yes, jobs are looking for the wrong things, like job descriptions in HR and all these screeners. And then part of it is us. Part of it is the people applying for jobs don't know how to word your resume right to be able to say, okay, without saying, the negative connotation of I blew shit up for a living and saying I managed a team of X personnel and was able to do this. I was responsible for X amount of dollars and was able to do, this and save our company or whatever X amount of dollars by implementing that. So a lot of that comes into play. Just like being a barista, hey, I was able to take in X amount of orders or remember this and do this, that, the other, and deliver to personnel on a regular basis on time and even quicker than they expected and, deliver things in a timely fashion. So being able to translate that into the right terminology on a resume is amazing. But again, that comes down to the job description because guess what? They may not care about that and say, do you have a CEH or a GX certification? No? Well, we don't care.
I mean, you're going to find that out there. And that's what I had a hard time in as well is, I ran into interviews where, if I didn't have their certifications, I was pretty much thrown out at the back. Doesn't matter what I did, how fast I learned. I mean, in my 20 years, I literally was thrown into jobs where I had to learn quickly on different software, hardware, anything. And I picked it up really quickly. But, you'll get to some companies, they don't care about that. They want to see the cert.
Yep. I've been very lucky. And Alyssa helped me out, when we're not going to discuss what happened last, but when that happened, she reached out and she was like, yeah, hey, I got this, take a look. Granted, at that time, I didn't need it. I was going to look into it, and then I found out, 3-4 days later, hey, you got a new job, and I was like, sweet, all right, moving on. But that comes down from knowing people, and I've networked in such a way that I could reach out to people and being like, hey, look, I need a job. hey, look, I've done this. Even if it's side work, I've been able to ingrain myself in a community of people that honestly do nothing but love and support and things like that. So it's been amazing. And for some reason, my YouTube video live stream looks like it's just loading, so I hope it's not buffering for everybody. But we do have the Alaskan cybersecurity professional on the call now. So I don't want to butcher your name because that would look really bad. So please, if you could pronounce it right for me and introduce yourself, that'd be fantastic.
I'm Juneau, formerly from Alaska, now living in Dallas. That's actually why I was late, as I was flying back from Alaska all day. Yeah, I currently work as a adversarial analyst for Critical Start here in Dallas. And I run DC214, Dallas's DEF CON group. We've been around 17 years, and I believe we're Texas's oldest, get off my microphone, cat, hacker group.
She got a cat too. My cat was just with me.
Here's one. This is DC.
You missed Apollo. Apollo was just with me earlier.
She's very angry all the time. There's also Little Kitty, who is the foster kitten I was adopting. I still need name ideas, but I think I'm going to go with Ripley. And there's a husky somewhere too.
Oh, hold up. So you've got 2 cats and a husky. Me and my wife have the exact same thing.
Nice.
So I've got 2 cats, Apollo, Artemis, and then my husky's name is Athena. If you haven't caught the theme yet, there's a theme there.
Their names are all spread out. Husky is Lily. She came with that name. One cat is DC from the movie That Darn Cat. And the other kitten, I think, is going to be Ripley because she likes to laugh into my face.
That's Apollo. Apollo lays on my wife's neck and everything else all the time. So I'm putting on the hoodie. Hold on. Time out. Wife just made it. Gotta, hold on.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice.
That's what I'm talking about.
See, wife just hooked it up, so we're good to go.
Like it.
But I think it's funny. She mentioned Alaska. Am I like?
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Alaska hoodie.
Yes.
Look, I love
DEF
it.
CON is canceled shirt.
Oh, don't say that. I was
That's
so
the
mad
only one I
couldn't go
didn't get. I got all the other ones, but not that one.
But yeah, so let us know. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't met you. I went to Critical Start earlier this year. Actually, I went down there and toured their headquarters with the company I was employed with, and met Sanjay and a bunch of other people, and it was amazing. Like, I love their new headquarters. I love what they put together and the way it's set up and their SOC and everything else like that. So
yeah, I was actually only hired on a couple of months ago.
Oh, all right. So that'd be why.
Middle of the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, I love Critical Start. They do amazing things. I love what they have to offer. So they're an awesome company. And you know, I've seen a lot of good things from them. But yeah, so it's great that you're with them, especially for the adversarial simulation side, because that's an interesting. So do you work with their actual red team with Team Ares, or do you work with other personnel within Critical Start for that?
Yeah, I'm on Team Ares.
Oh my God. That is an awesome team. Look, if none of y'all know Team Ares is amazing. Don't get me wrong. They're fantastic. I met their lead. I can't remember his name right now, but they're very intelligent people. So I love what Critical Start brings to the table in terms of cybersecurity. You know, they do a lot of very, very fantastic things there as far as what they bring offer. So Team Ares and their whole team, and now that you're on there, it's going to get even better. So, I mean, what am I going to say?
Yeah, it's been really cool. It's been really, really cool the couple of months I've been there.
Yeah, I've toured them. I really like what they bring. I really like what they offer. So, I can't get mad. They're flat out amazing. Other than that, let's see, we've been talking about jobs, and it came from Alyssa, because, you know, well, hold on, let me point the right way over here because my camera's messed up.
I don't know, from my side you're pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, I was pointing to Kim, right?
I'm over here.
Hey, Kim, You know, so between you and Juneau,
Juneau.
Juneau,
Like the city, man.
Yeah,
Come
like the
on.
city.
like the movie too.
Like the city in Alaska.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. All
That's
right. I
straight where I
apologize.
ripped my name from.
I apologize. Look, people butcher my name
No
all the
worries.
time. I'm a German. I get called Skeller and everything else, so it happens. That's why I just go Cyber Warrior. It's easier for people to know.
Yeah.
But so in terms of the skills gap, both Kim and Juneau, what is your take on that? Because we have seen a lot of things and a lot of people applying for jobs, looking for work, looking for, you know, an internship or full-time employment. Is it a failure at the resume level? Is it a failure at the company level? Or is it a combination of the two? Because I see a combination. I do see a lot of bad job descriptions. Don't get me wrong. When you're asking for GX certification and not telling me which of the 50 GX certifications you're looking for, there's a problem. But I see a job at the resume level of not being able to really articulate what you bring to the table. So I think it goes both ways. I do think in high school we should have a resume class that really teaches how to do these things. So where do you feel the fault truly lies? And where do you feel kind of like the minor fault lies in terms of what's going on?
I have an interesting perspective because my mom was an evil HR manager, and quite frankly, all HR managers are evil, including my mom. Like, F her.
Nice.
She's elderly now, so she's not doing that shit anymore. Thank goodness. But I mean, I've heard one of Alyssa's talks about the supposed cybersecurity skills gap. And I think she has a lot of great advice about how you can retool your resume. So, I mean, that's always a factor, but I think the number one greatest problem is that companies are too greedy. They don't want to invest in employees. They want to take absolutely zero risk, which is impossible in the hiring process. They don't want to invest in their training at all. They want these unicorns day one to have everything for even a very niche position, and for the liability and risk that the company takes to be zero. So all the training burden, all the expensive training, they want it on the employee. Like, they pay for the certification, they pay for their training and all that stuff. So I think that is the single biggest problem. Now, as a lot of you know, Phil Wiley and I have a book coming up. It's going to be published on December 3rd, The Pentester Blueprint. And we mentioned the cybersecurity skills gap in our book. I actually wrote the part about the cybersecurity skills gap. And I was very careful to, I explained what the concept was objectively, but then after that, I explained how I think it's bullshit, and this is why.
Well, I mean, I can tell you my research says it's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, quite bluntly. I mean, and that's the thing. And so, you know, since we're talking upcoming books, I'll also throw out there, I'm not as close to publishing. I am woefully behind. My publisher probably wants to strangle me at this point, but I do have one that will be coming out next year where I am using, I mean, that's what I did all this research for, honestly. As much as I love doing talks and stuff on it, it's really, my intention is to produce a report and also to include it in this book. But yeah, I mean, there I do touch, I more than touch on it. I dive into it because I think for people trying to get into this career field, you need to understand what the perspectives are. And, you know, and I'm glad to have some, I wouldn't call it empirical data, but at least, you know, decently researched. I mean, I didn't do scientific surveys or studies, but it's still a lot of data that I collected and found, and it matches up to a lot of, you know, what Kim just mentioned.
So wow, this is the first time I've learned about your book. So I'm looking forward to it. I try to buy as many books coming out.
So
in
Kim, that
particular
means you
field
need
as
to keep on
possible.
Alyssa and have her actually finish the book. All right, you got to do it. That's
But
your
it's
job as the
easier.
PIC, is to keep her on it and make her finish the book.
But you see, it's easier for me to finish a book. That's why Phil decided to co-author with me, because he's got all these professional responsibilities. Like he's got his pawn school, he's got the ITSP podcast with Alyssa and Chloe. He's got day job also as a red teamer.
And here I
And
am trying to just finish a novel and get my YouTube channel off the ground, and I
right.
can't even do
Yeah.
that.
When writing is your only job, it's much easier to finish a book, even if
wish
you've
it was
got
my
lots
only
of other
job.
writing gigs.
Then maybe I'd get somewhere.
Because you're always in writing mode. If I was a security practitioner, if I had to like show up at a data center or a cubicle farm or whatever, it would take me a lot longer to finish a book.
Yeah, I'm actually, so I got the new job, and actually I can announce it now because I start on Monday. I'm
Excellent.
working for
Nice.
CISO LLC
Cool.
as a senior blue team security consultant. So it'll be awesome because it's a Pittsburgh-based company, which is where I'm from, and they also are doing a lot of great things. Like honestly, I love what they're bringing to the table. I love what one of the co-founders got a hold of me. He's helps organize B-Sides Pittsburgh. John Ziola, amazing guy, and sent me a bunch of the stuff they're doing, and so it's gonna be awesome getting into that. But again, I got a family to feed, so I can't just concentrate on what I want to do. I got to work full time, but it allows me to get experience. It allows me to do things that I wouldn't normally get to do, because it's really hard to get independent work. So integrating with other companies and things like that. Whereas when you work for a company that does these things, you can really learn the field and really learn more about what's going on in the world. So, Juneau, give us the lowdown. What do you feel about the cyber skills gap? I mean, where are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, for a little bit of background, I've only been in the cybersecurity industry about 2 years since I graduated college in 2018. So I've really only looked at this from a beginner individual contributor sort of level. And I'm definitely finding a lot of the things that Alyssa and Kim have been saying of a lot of companies, they either want these unicorns, they want 5 years of experience for entry-level jobs. When I was searching for jobs in tech in Anchorage, I saw a few places that the only job they had listed was 7 or more years. I'm like, hi, I'm a recent college graduate, could you throw me a bone? And they were like, absolutely not. And I found myself just coming out of college and having a job to be very, very, very lucky. Just that I was already lucky to do that. And my first job out of college was in cybersecurity and more on the business side. I mostly did like policy proofreading and data entry. And one thing I found sort of from that side is I tell people, oh, I want to be a pen tester, and they'd be like, but why? You have a job. So you sort of get it from a couple of different sides, and it took me quite a while to find a group who was willing to take a chance on me as someone with no professional technical background into a technical role. And even then, one thing I heard from someone on the team was, well, they were looking for a unicorn for a couple of months. And then they decided to hire a couple entry-level people. And I'm happy they did. That was my blue team job, and I enjoyed it a lot.
I was about to say, if you heard that from Team Aries, let me know. I'll get a hold of the guy and
No,
we'll be fighting.
that was a different job.
All right, good, because I'll get a hold of the guy and we'll have words. Because that's something that I don't expect from Critical Start, because they are, like I said, I've met them guys and they're fantastic at what they do and seem very open in who they bring in and who they train, and their training program, even for their SOC analyst side and their the side of what they do for MDR and things like that, look just amazing. And so if somebody ever said that to you, I'd have been like,
No.
yo,
No, yeah, their training and mentorship program was
dude, it's
was
ridiculous.
awesome.
It's
Just to
spot on.
clarify, the previous blue team job that I had as well, the whole team that I was on was awesome, and there wasn't anything
Okay.
weird. That's just what I had heard through the
Yeah.
grapevine, is that it had taken them a while to want to hire some newer people.
Right. Yeah, and that's crazy because like, and you, it's one of those things where you look at what's out there. You look at how companies are looking for unicorns, and excuse me, and you look at all these things, and I get amazed because we see so many people that are passionate, that do blogs, that do YouTube videos, that do GitHub. They have GitHub repos, and they have all this other stuff that honestly I'm shocked right now that some of these companies haven't actually started implementing a way to, instead of looking for certifications, look for links, look for hyperlinks on resumes and things like that, that look for what people have done that are contributing to cybersecurity. Because I can't tell you how many people I know that have dropped out of high school, dropped out of college, dropped out of, they don't have certifications, or they may have a CEH, like, and they're like, or a Security Plus, but they're like, hey, I have this blog with like 1,000 posts of what I do for a living. And it's like, dude, that's more than I've ever done. Like, I don't write that much.
Yeah.
And you see these things, and it's crazy because I hate the skills gap. And now, like the fact that they bring this into play, when the reality is the people are out there. The people that can do the job are out there. You just have to be willing to give someone a chance that maybe doesn't have a CEH or a Security Plus or a GSEC or a GPEN or a GCIH or a CISP. The CISP is the biggest one for me, and my mentor, Keytron Evans, is going to kill me for saying this, but I'm sorry. When you're looking for a junior analyst, you should not be looking for a CISP. If you're looking for a senior analyst, then maybe, because yes, they will have to interact with the CISO or with directors and be able to talk business as well as security. But at that junior level, you should not be looking for a CISP, because that takes 5 years of experience. So seeing things like that on junior level job descriptions blows my ever-loving mind. It really does. That is one of my biggest pet peeves. Mid to senior level, I got you. I can understand why. But at the junior level, to see some of these certifications and degrees that are asked for, I want to literally strangle somebody. I do. I want to strangle somebody. Because my first job I got, I had half this wall and still only made 60 grand a year. Yes, I'll get into finances. I made 60 grand a year with 4 SAN certifications, a bachelor's degree, and military experience. And it took me a year to get that job.
Yeah, like radical concept. Maybe these companies should invest money and time in training people rather than wanting all the burden to be on the employee. And like, how is a poor person supposed to break into cybersecurity?
And again, how is somebody who's going through college, paying for college? Because let's be honest, the college loan debt is ridiculous. So you either have to have money, like you either have to be raised with a silver or gold spoon in your mouth to afford college these days, or you have to take out loans and put yourself thousands of dollars in debt, sometimes $50,000 to $100,000 to $200,000 in debt, to be able to get a degree, to then say, oh, I've got a bachelor's from Yale, so here you go. Oh, we'll hire you on the spot because it's Yale, so sure. Like, come on now. I got a bachelor's from a state school.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so I saw Jessica raise her hand before. We were kind of down this path of certs and stuff. I'm actually kind of curious because it sounds like her experience was a lot like yours and mine, and of kind of almost you're getting that one break, and that seems how most of us ended up here. But I'm kind of curious because sorry to call you out, Jessica. I happened to see you before. You were like, you're all there, so.
No, my certs were from back in 2000. And of course, I got to working heavily in the IT industry and stuff like that. And of course, had kids and always in a job, in an IT job, we're constantly learning things over and over and over, and new things and stuff like that. So, I did try the college route, and it was just getting too much where my job was demanding more of my time than what I could put into study. And I was failing tests. And I'll be honest, I am not a good test taker, but you put me in front of a problem and I can do it. But you put me in front of a test and I'm like, I get nervous, whatever, it happens. So my certs did eventually expire, and I am eventually going for, I want to stack them up back again. But yeah, I had jobs where it was just like, oh, you don't have, these certain certs, well, bye, sorry. Totally ignoring my experience. And then I had my manager, she reached out to me and she was like, I love your passion. I love what you do. I don't care about, what you're not certified in. I want somebody that can do the job and is passionate about the job and loves what she does.
Yeah, and that's a big thing.
Well, and you want to know the hypocrisy of this is that you'll have these managers, and this is the thing that dumbfounds me with the whole cert argument. You'll have managers who are like, will sit there and tell you that they won't hire somebody who has certs. So like, no, I want to see someone who's got passion. Certs don't mean anything. Certs just a piece of paper. They'll say all these different things, right? And they're not necessarily totally wrong. I mean, certs, we can argue about how much they really demonstrate of your knowledge. But then there's the same managers who, when they write a job description or when they review a job description from HR that has a cert in there, will push that forward with the cert as a requirement. So it's like, wait a minute, make up your mind. If you put this on the job description, you're saying a cert matters. So then when you get that, kid who's out of college who went out and got a bunch of certs because they thought that was the way to get in, don't stand there and tell them that those certs are meaningless. You said they meant something because you put them as requirements on your job description. So make up your mind.
Yeah, so I got a question from somebody, from Danny Maria here on YouTube. I'll get to that in a second. But on the note of certifications and job requirements and degrees and things like that. So before I went active duty Army, I was working for a company. We're not going to get into who it was, but I was a subcontractor. And the actual company itself was offering up a full-time role in help desk or sysadmin, something like that. And funny enough, they had a GPA requirement for college degrees. And I said, but I've been doing this job for how long? I know the system. I know how to do the job because I've been here for how long. So why do you have a GPA requirement? And he said, well, it's so-and-so's requirement. And I was like, he was like, but if you get a CCIE, I'll hire you for 6 figures on the spot. And I was like, dude, I just have a CCNA. Actually, I don't even think I had my CCNA at that point. And I was like, so you're telling me that I either have to have, I think it was a 3.6 or 3.7 GPA when I graduate college in a year, or I have to have a CCIE to get a full-time job here. I said, go fly a kite. I'll never work for you. It'll never happen. I was the one person that everybody counted on there to do the job and everybody loved, but because you have a GPA, I can't work there. Get out of here. I'm done. I don't want to work for you. And it just blew my mind. But getting on the note, Danny Maria, what do you think about companies who deny everyone for a job opportunity, but then put out a job listing for the same exact job? Do you think they're picky, or is this normal? I think it's normal. I think they're picky for one, but it's still normal. I see it more often than not, where they'll deny someone a job, even internally, but then post a job description looking for the exact same job that somebody was denied. So, I don't know. What are your takes, guys?
Okay, I'm hearing silence, so I'm going to jump. I was holding back because I have a lot of opinions on this. Unfortunately, this is something that does happen, and I can't understand it. So in the HR space, and Kim, you may have heard this term. You said, I think it was your mom that worked in HR. There's this idea of cost of vacancy. And that is the concept that having an open position sitting open has a tangible cost to your business. Literally, it costs you more money to have that position open on the market, and I'm not talking recruiting costs, I mean like actual costs to your business, than to fill it. And so it dumbfounds me when an organization has an internal candidate and they say no and they put it out on the market and they leave it open and it sits for a while. Like, I can understand an organization who wants to bring in some external candidates and internal candidates because you want to make sure that you're getting new ideas. I mean, you mentioned diversity early on. You want to make sure, hey, let's get diversity. If I pull someone in from the outside who's never seen this org, they may have a different thought process. Maybe I find someone who's got really cool qualifications I want, whatever. I get that. But yeah, I've sat there firsthand and watched, I'm going to be more specific. I've been that person who had all of the qualifications of a position, save for maybe one, where I and my peers who had all applied for that position were all turned down, and they went to the open job market, and the position, I'll tell you what, that position opened up in February of last year. It still sits vacant today. And it was a leadership position. So think about that for a minute. You've got a leadership position now that has been open for over a year and a half, unfilled. What does that cost your organization in terms of burnout, in terms of extra work that just having that other body could be doing? All the things, and I won't even get into, I will get into because I'm about to say it. The fact that this was a director level role that, led an entire sales practice that was, so now you have someone at a higher level who's got to fill that, who's got to take that more granular focus on that one role, because rather than take a flyer and maybe take a little bit of risk on one of the people in their organization who applied for this, they wanted this one special unicorn, as we've been using the term, that would fit all these things. And so they went to the open job market and they still can't fill it. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And unfortunately, yeah. So back to Danny's question, yeah, this unfortunately does happen. And I don't have a good answer for that one. I don't know what causes it or why organizations don't recognize what that costs them to have that position sit open.
Danny says, sadly, I wasn't the unicorn.
I wonder about those jobs too, because, if you come in too high with, an offer, hey, because they ask you, what do you want to make? And you tell them, well, that's just too high. If everybody's coming in higher, I could see them leaving it open because they don't want to pay it.
But that's a problem, because let's be honest, if you're going to talk about the skills gap, it's really the finance gap, because we are the people that can sit here and say it costs this amount of money to hire us. Either you want to secure your company or you don't. And I get it, they have a budget, but what they're going to end up doing is hiring Joe Blow out of college that wants to take $60,000 a year because he has to feed his family or provide a living or a roof over his head. That's not going to do as good as a job as the person that said, hey, I'm going to take it for 120, or I'm going to take it for 110, or whatever the case may be, because they want to save money. But what they're not realizing is, guess what? By hiring, so-and-so for less money, who doesn't have the experience or doesn't have the passion or the drive or whatever the case may be, you're doing it, which is great. You're employing someone, but you're constraining yourself. You're setting yourself up for failure, because you're not taking that person that knows what they're worth, that knows what their value is. They're taking someone who just needs a job, and they're willing to take anything, which can work out great for that person. They can get the experience, they can do that, but they may fail your company. But that turns us into this, well, are you looking for a unicorn? When you're hiring a unicorn, you better be willing to pay $200,000 a year. If that's what you're looking for, your budget better set you up for $200,000 a year. Because if you can't pay it, you're not going to get it. Because the person that knows everything that you're asking is going to want a hell of a lot of money. And if you're not willing to pay that amount of money, then you might as well say and reduce your job description to say, hey, I need someone with a SEC plus that's willing to be an analyst.
No. Must have CISSP, must have 15
and
years
work
experience.
For $30,000 a year.
with $15,000, yeah. 15 years experience with Kubernetes and 20 years experience with Windows Server 2016.
Exactly.
And we're going to pay you 30 grand a year.
And did you see the guy who put up, he actually applied for a job at Swift. I think he applied, but basically he developed Swift. He was the developer of it. It had only been out for 5 years and they were asking for like 15 years experience.
Oh yeah.
He was like, dude, I wrote this. I know what Swift is. I'm the developer. And you're asking for 15 years experience of something I only did 5 years ago. So yeah, it's hilarious to see some of these things. I love it. I do. And people in the chat, please, if you have more questions, go ahead and ask them. We're all here to answer, especially the lovely ladies that are online that have probably more experience than I'll ever have in my life. As much as I'd love to say I know as much as them, they know so much more than me sometimes, especially Alyssa and Kim and Jessica and Juneau. I'm sorry, you all just seem to know a heck of a lot. I get amazed because these jobs are ridiculous. These jobs, it's not the jobs. Let me restate that in a better way. The jobs aren't ridiculous. The job requirements are. So it blows my mind. We got Alpha Cybersecurity online. We got Derek Lewinson online. Joseph Nylene. We got some great people online. Alpha Cyber joined us on YouTube. It is amazing. So yeah, I do. I see a lot of value. Juneau, as someone who's working for a red team now, as someone who was blue team, you kind of travel the same route I did. You've gone blue to red. Did you find it difficult, or do you find it advantageous to do both sides? I personally find it an advantage to know what people are looking for so that I know what to hide from. Do you find it the same way, or do you find it a little bit more of a learning curve because you've done so much in security and threat hunting and blue team stuff, and now you're doing the offensive side?
Sorry, my Zoom froze for a second there. I definitely find it really advantageous to know what I would have looked for on the blue team side. That's definitely something I think about a lot, is because I wrote a lot of alerting systems. So I sit there thinking, okay, would I have triggered an alerting system that I wrote? And oftentimes the answer is yes. But I think that's really helpful to think about. And I do think that if I ever go back to the blue team side, I'm going to take everything that I've learned from the red team side with me. I think it definitely helps to have an idea of both, especially since I'm relatively new to the industry and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to be doing, although I know I really love red teaming. So I think there's definitely something to be said for knowing both. But that being said, I think we often add we really keep building up this expectation that any cybersecurity professional knows everything on both sides. Like, you know, you're not doing it right if you're not doing red teaming, blue teaming, and having like 3 home labs set up. And so I definitely think we need to, I definitely think there's a ton of respect for people who, you know, they know their specialization. And so I think something can definitely be said for that too. I don't think you need to know one to be an expert in the other, but it's certainly helped me a lot.
For sure. Anybody, so any of the ladies know anything about DIFR, right? Digital forensics and incident response. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Because I got a great question for you guys. Danny Maria, who is actually in college, so of course she's going to ask another question. I love it. How to break into digital forensics? Because, Juneau, you answered that question just like I would, because you need to know both sides. Even if you have a generalization in one, you need to know both sides to do red and blue. But digital forensics is kind of a different ball game, because you do need to know red team, but that digs more into blue. So if you've done digital forensics and know a lot about it, I'd love to hear your point on how to break into it, how to really, what's a good way to make a name for yourself in the field, even if it's what type of blog post or YouTube video or GitHub or whatever they can do to really break into the field and have people realize who they are and what they can do?
Oh, I mean, DFIR is, first of all, is probably the single hardest one to get into from an entry-level position. Out of anything that I can think of across the security space, that's probably one of the toughest because, and you just said it, right? I mean, it requires so much capability and understanding of both, how attackers attack, what the capabilities of your defensive systems are, and in addition to all that, just the underlying actual technology that you're defending in the first place. There is a vast amount of knowledge that it takes to be good in that field. That's not to say that it's impossible, but it is, I mean, it takes a lot of work to get in there. I think one of the things that you can do is really dig into, you almost have to find like a specialization within it, right? Like, I think of Leslie Carhart, Hacks for Pancakes. Like, I mean, she's amazing across the board. Like, she has a lot of skills in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to that type of work. But, where she's really kind of focused, a lot of her more recent work is in ICS, industrial control systems, and she's amazing. And I think if you can take an element like that and attack a certain technology, unfortunately, it kind of limits your targets as far as what you might be looking for in a job. I mean, obviously, if you say you were to specialize in ICS, you're going to be very focused in ICS. Organizations that don't fall into that or don't have the type of technology, if they're not running a production line or delivering electricity or something like that, you're probably not going to have a really good story to tell them. But I think that's about the best thing you can do. And it's a matter of understanding that technology, understanding the unique challenges that go with whatever technology it is that you want to kind of narrow down to. But I hate to say it, I don't know that's, and me, I wouldn't say this lightly. That's a tough one to try to get into from an entry level perspective.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's really tough because you have to know so much of blue and red team to be able to ingrain yourself in whatever the technology is. So if you're differ for, say, Windows or Linux or Mac or ICS or whatever the case may be, IoT is another big one which relies heavily on Linux, but still, it's a whole different can of worms. Being able to do those things is really, really difficult. And I think you have to have that analyst, like to me, at least, you have to have that analyst perspective and that red team perspective in order to do things like that. So I don't disagree. It is a really hard field unless you're going to start, basically reverse engineering so much code and so much of what has already come out as far as malware for these different systems. Jessica, do you have a different perspective on that, or do you feel it's, feel exactly the same way?
Yeah, no, you're talking about something that's heavy-handed technical, and that's not something you can just jump into easily as far as an entry-level thing. So yeah, you're gonna have to back it up a bit and start, at the basics and work your way up for that. For me, I'd have to do that.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that I see. I mean, law enforcement's a great way. Alpha Cybersecurity put it up. Law enforcement's a great way to break into it. But even then, getting into law enforcement, you have to have a degree. You have to have certain expectations before you get into those professional sides of FBI, of your state law enforcement and things like that. So, differ is definitely not something that is, I would say, entry level by any means. Granted, if you're good at what you do, if you can reverse engineer, if you can prove these things, it's not impossible. It is just very difficult. I
I think the path, honestly, if I had to say there was a path into this, right, is, rather than thinking, or, trying to get into a deeper role just straight off, I think it really is, honestly, the most natural path is to go through the SOC. If you can get a role in the SOC, you get exposed to exactly that, right? You're seeing the attacks come in. You're seeing the defensive systems that you have in place. You're learning how to identify a lot of this. And there is actually a fairly strong natural progression from working in a SOC to moving into deeper. It's not the only way. And you know me, I am not a gatekeeper. I am not going to sit here and say you have to do it that way. SOC roles are sometimes some of the easier ones to land as an entry level, as opposed to some of the other roles that are in security. So there is that, and that could be your foot in the door, get you started on seeing the kinds of things.
Right.
And now every skill that you add is adding value to your organization, and then it's also building you towards getting into that digital forensics role that you're ultimately craving to get to.
All right. Right. So I'm gonna do this because it is ladies' night. I'm gonna step away. I'm gonna let you ladies discuss and figure out, and just talk and have your moment. And I'll be back in a little bit. And when I come back, I'll end the show and we'll be good to go.
Sounds good.
All right.
Get out of here. Go away.
So what about that new Microsoft role, the one that everyone's talking about, the big one?
Oh my gosh. Do we have to talk Microsoft?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I am, I don't even have comments. I'm sorry. I'm just not there with that one, but,
I have a question, guys.
Yeah.
And I've thought about it, and you're talking, Alyssa, about the job market and the way jobs are wrote and things like that. There's some incredibly talented people out there that don't have degrees, that don't have certs, but are talented up the wazoo, probably way more than I'll ever think of being. Do you think this is because of the lack of jobs out there for him, because of the lack of jobs, him or her, or whatever, they're open targets for criminals to pull them in because they need the money, they need the income, they need, they want to, I've always thought about that. I was like, you take a young kid, who's super intelligent, but can't get anybody to hire him, but need to feed, need to eat, need to provide a place. I mean, what do you think about that, them being targeted?
I mean, it's interesting because it almost feels like full circle, right? I mean, I think back to, so I started hacking when I was 12. I bought myself my own computer and got into some things I probably shouldn't have. But part of that was, in that space, that's where you got into it and you started meeting the hacker community. I didn't do a lot on the BBS world. But by the time I really got heavy into it, I was more in IRC. But that's, we kind of came together there, and it wasn't organized criminal stuff that we were doing. In fact, I would argue a lot of it wasn't what I ideologically would say was criminal. According to the CFAA, sure, probably. I think many of the things we did were illegal. But the reality is, it is that world now where if you've got these skills and you can't get a job, I mean, you've got kind of two options, right? You can go jump in on a bug bounty, which at least there's that. I mean, you do have organizations like HackerOne, BugCrowd, and, a myriad of other ones who are a little lesser known. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, there is that concern. At least, I mean, it's not a bad thought. I don't know, honestly, how much we would be seeing that shift. But I mean, I would think if there's probably at least some who do end up, they find their way into those groups, and You know, if you find the group that's, hey, making a lot of money, I mean, so much of that space now has actually become commoditized where, hey, I need an expert that can hack this. Okay, $10,000 offer, I'll take it, you know.
There are more immediate ways for someone who's desperate to make money than a bug bounty, because someone who is hunting for bugs could be taking over a year to do it and only get like 10 grand, right? I mean, the dark web market has made it super easy to make money from malware without needing much in the way of skills. Like, okay, just buy some ransomware, buy a crypto miner, you like start a botnet with that. A great big database of breached credit card numbers. That's the easy part. Generating revenue from malware that you can buy on the dark web, that's the easy part. Of course, the hard part is doing that and not getting caught, covering your tracks.
That's not hard.
That's the hard part.
That's not hard. Come on. Little phishing email, little DNS, you know. It'll be all right. No, but came in late, of course, because, you know, ladies' night. I had to let you ladies talk. I find the conversation interesting because it's, when you look at how easy it is to be a black hat, right? Let's look. I hate the term hacker and what social media and what the media in general and what society has done to it. Term hacker comes from the MIT Railroad Company years ago, and it was a good term. They've actually ruined the term. But when you look at a black hat, it is. When you look at what a white hat hacker can only make upwards of, let's say, in a technical aspect, at the upper echelon, $250 a year. Let's just say. A black hat, out the gate, in the course of a month, can make probably $500,000 to $1 million if they hit the right company with ransomware. Now, of course, they got to hide their tracks, but you hit the right company and hide your tracks well enough to where the company just doesn't want to go to the FBI or go to whomever. They just pay the ransom and they're out the door. You've now made more money than somebody that does things on the right side of the law will ever make. And that is what has made it so lucrative and made it so much that there's a lot of people that have turned to the darknet, turned to Tor, turned to I2P and all these other things, and made it so they can do this because they can buy it for, say, a ransomware variant for, I don't know, $1,000 maybe. And the person that coded it isn't getting in trouble. It's the person that uses it. Because 9 times out of 10, the person that coded it isn't the one that's spreading it, isn't the one infecting other machines. They just coded it. So they're not going to get caught. It's the person that actually delivers the mechanism, delivers the payload, that's going to get caught eventually. Because let's be real, everybody gets greedy. And that's what catches all these groups. That's why I said
that's the hard part, is not getting caught. The initial money making is easy.
But the only reason a lot of these groups and a lot of these people get caught is they get greedy. Because your initial few companies that you make your thousands of dollars on, half the time they're not going to go to the FBI. They don't want to bring out that they were breached. They don't want to let it be known that people's information got out there or they paid a ransom. But when you get greedy and go for that $2, $3, $4, $5 million and you keep going with it, that's when you get caught. Because that's when the Treasury Department, the FBI, other countries, everybody else gets out there and knows about you now. So now you're on their watch list. They're going to find you, and you're eventually going to get taken down. Unless you belong to a nation state. Then I guess tricky.
Or just live in a non-extradition country, which is where you see a lot of the coordinated attacks originate from, right? I mean, it's not by accident. So, yeah, I mean, on the flip side, true hackers, at least, you know, the communities I live in,
yeah,
and I think many of us have, is there is a certain idealism there that kind of keeps you from going that route, right?
There is.
I mean, you think about just where a lot of us were, it wasn't about we wanted to steal things or, you know, I mean, sure, did we use it for that? I'm sure. I mean, I can think of a few things you could consider I stole. But it was always more about, it was like, hey, we want to understand this stuff. We want to see how we can make this work better, make it work a little different. I want it to do something it doesn't do, so can I twist it around a little bit and get it to do it? I mean, you talked about the Tech Model Railroad Club at MIT. It's like, yeah, I mean, that was where that term got to start, right? It was like, hey, we want to make this start, right? It was like, hey, we want to make this train do this thing, and it was like, oh, that's a cool hack. Boom, hackers, yay! Yep. And here we are. So, and I mean, the thing I love most, because I even have a tattoo from it on my shoulder, was Jason Street gave a keynote at GERCON in 2014, I believe, and he went through the history of hackers, and you know, his focus, and the quote that's on the back of my shoulder is, you know, hacker artists and inventors, they're not freaks and criminals, you know. And it's you look at it, these people, I mean, was Nikola Tesla a hacker? Hell yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Look at the stuff that dude did. I mean, come on.
I was listening to a podcast that one of my heroes, Cory Doctorow, was being interviewed. It was about how, you know, we're in a cyberpunk age now, and the consequences of all this mass surveillance and stuff like that. But he repeatedly used the word hacker to mean cyber attack or threat actor. It was grinding my gears each and every damn time.
Okay, Peter.
That's why I started.
Who saw Family Guy?
Who
knows what that's from? I had to say it. You brought it out of me.
Like, this is Cory Doctorow. Like, he is influential when it comes to thinking about technology.
The term hacker has been twisted. It's been keyed into something that's malicious when it's not. And in its inception, it was never something that was malicious. And I'm not gonna lie, we've all been down that route of, you know, I can make so much more money if no, we're not gonna do it. And the problem I have is I always thought even black hats had that line they wouldn't cross. Unfortunately, I've seen them cross it too many times in recent months. And that's going after hospitals, which have caused people to die, and going after schools. And that is something I thought they would never do, because even the malicious hackers always had, from what I have seen in recent history and in history, your black hats have always had an intent. If it was companies, if it was governments, it was always for a purpose, whether financial or political or whatever the case may be. There was always a purpose behind it. But to go after a hospital and schools, I'm not going to lie, that is one of the biggest things, and one of the lines I thought would never be crossed by anybody in the IT security field. Whether good or bad, it was a line I thought would never be crossed.
A lot of that cybercrime, where big institutions are the target these days, a lot of that is coming from APTs out of, like, North Korea. Like, it looks pretty clear now that most of the revenue coming into North Korea is from international cybercrime.
And I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. I just thought even them, as somebody, unless the nation state is paying you to do this, I figured they had the moral standing to not try to kill people. As somebody who their goal is usually to do better, and to provide an influence in some way, shape, or form, to go after a hospital of all things.
I mean, I think we have to.
You're a veteran, like military strike hospitals.
What were you saying, Juneau?
I was gonna say, I think we have to keep sort of in mind. I think you have a very noble view of every single hacker, or really every single person who uses a computer.
I do.
Because one thing I think we have to keep in mind is that especially in these ransomware attacks, pretty much anybody can buy and use ransomware, like anybody off the street. So first of all, I do feel that it's unfortunately a stretch to say that there is this nobility among all tech nerds that prevent us from doing something this atrocious. I unfortunately am too much of a pessimist for that. But then I think we also have to add in, especially as more and more people get into hacking and stuff, then we also have to take into account just the widespread usage of ransomware from all over, because it could be pretty much anyone using ransomware in a hospital these days.
And that's what I was going to say, to kind of build on that, was I think you're making an assumption that these people who are nation state actors are, one, hackers at all, two, that they came up the same way a lot of our security industry hackers came up. You know, I mean, I think of just the folks out there that we interact with on Twitter every day who, you know, came from that world. It's a different world now than it was then, right? I mean, we were blazing a lot of trails, and I say we, and I don't even feel right including myself in that, because there were a lot of people who went before me.
Only 33, Alyssa.
And did a lot of crazy things. But the thing is, it's like, you know, we came up out of a love of technology. I think a lot of the people that you're seeing who are part of these nation state groups and other things, they were bred from the beginning that that's what they were going to do, this was like how they were going to make money. It wasn't that, you know, we all have a passion for technology. We want to make technology better. We want to make it more secure. These people didn't come up that way. So any, you know, unspoken code or just lines you don't cross, I think all that's out the window. And especially when you consider some of the nation states it's coming from, like North Korea, where they feel justified attacking the U.S. because of other things that have occurred between the U.S. and North Korea. And so to expect that they're going to have some moral code that they're not going to breach, I don't think that that's realistic. And that's, again, why, to Juneau's point, I have a hard time calling, those are cyber criminals. That's the term I tend to use. I don't like calling them hackers. And it's that pejorative use of the term hackers. I mean, that's why Brian McInich started Hacking Is Not a Crime, right? I mean, this is the thing. I love it. And
my favorite thing.
So, yeah, if people won't know what I'm talking about, check out at Hack Not Crime on Twitter and get involved. I mean, we're reaching out to media folks when we see them using the crappy stereotypical images, or we see them misusing the term hacker. Like, change the perception. We need to work toward that. And yeah, she's got the sticker. Yeah,
I love it. I need one of those. I got stickers too. Hey, whoever doesn't know,
50.
I came out with rainbow Cyber Warrior stickers. I did do that.
Nice.
I came out with some other ones, but I did come out with some rainbow ones just because. Actually, I had someone on Discord ask for rainbow, and so I came out with one variation. She didn't like it, so I came out with another. And I put that on my cyberwarriorstudios.com. But, hey, so Alyssa has to run. I got to run. We're well over an hour anyways. We're getting late.
It's getting late. This is way past my time.
So, look, hey, check it out, guys. This is Cyber Warrior Studios Security Happy Hour. This is Ladies' Night. Unfortunately, I didn't have as many on as I was hoping. But, you know what? It's great conversation. I love having it. I'm going to do Cyber Warrior Studios and Security Happy Hour every week. And people have been asking me to go live more often, so we may arrange that. But, needless to say, I love you guys. I love you all. And I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great Halloween. I hope you have a great rest of your year. Let's get through all this nonsense that's going on. And if you haven't seen it, Cyber Warrior Studios does do merchandise all the time. cyberwarriorstudios.com. And I will catch you all next time.
Good. Take care.
So anybody that can't say on?